Welcome to the deep dive. Our digital world is just exploding. Cloud environments are getting more complicated every single day. And the big challenge for pretty much any organization isn't just using the cloud, right? It's locking down every digital identity, managing exactly who gets access to what. It feels like this enormous, constantly shifting puzzle. And one wrong move, well, the consequences can be pretty severe. So today we're really diving into a key part of solving that puzzle. We're looking closely at automated security and cloud identity entitlement management, CIM for short. And we're comparing that directly with, let's call it the traditional way, manual cloud security management. The sources we're drawing on today really set these two approaches against each other. It gives a really interesting view of cloud security now and honestly where it's going very, very quickly.
Exactly. And our mission here is basically to sift through that research, pull out the really crucial bits for you. We want to help you understand, okay, what are the fundamental differences here? What are the big advantages? Maybe disadvantages too. And crucially, when does it make sense to use one approach over the other? Think of it as getting you up to speed fast on something that's just vital for modern cloud security.
Okay, great. So let's start with the basics then. This term, CIMM, Cloud Identity Entitlement Management. What exactly is it, and how is it fundamentally different from just, doing things by hand?
Right. So automated security in CIM fundamentally uses specialized tools. These tools are designed to automate the whole process, finding identities, keeping an eye on them, managing who has what permissions across potentially many different cloud environments, not just one.
Multi-cloud, yeah.
Exactly. And its main goal really is cutting down risk. It does this by actively looking for and fixing things like permissions that are way too broad, those orphaned accounts you mentioned.
Ah, yes, the
Yes.
ones left behind.
Yeah, identities just sitting there after someone leaves or a system is decommissioned, big risk. And also roles that are just misconfigured. It's all about enforcing that principle of least privilege. You only get the access you absolutely need to do your job, nothing more.
Okay, that makes sense. Proactive.
Proactive is the key word. Now, contrast that with manual cloud security management. It's pretty much what it sounds like. You've got human admins manually managing identities, setting permissions, crafting policies one by one across every single cloud platform you use.
Oh,
Yeah,
huh?
it leans very heavily on people checking things, manually intervening to make sure stuff is set up right and stays compliant. And you can probably guess, as soon as your cloud presence starts to grow, that becomes incredibly difficult, time-consuming, and honestly, prone to errors.
That focus on rooting out things like orphaned accounts, that really strikes me. Are there typical situations where the manual way almost guarantees those things get missed until it's, too late?
Oh, absolutely. Think about places with high employee turnover or big cloud migrations where things are shifting constantly. Manual tracking just struggles to keep up with those dormant identities or leftover permissions that build up silently over time. They become hidden risks.
Right. Forgotten doors left unlocked.
Exactly. And that's where CIM really shines, according to our sources. The big draw is how it tackles these very common headaches. First off, automation drastically cuts the administrative workload. But it's more than just saving time. It fundamentally shifts your security team's posture. Instead of constantly reacting, putting out fires, fixing breaches after they happen, they become more like architects, proactively building stronger, more resilient security from the ground up. It's a huge shift in how security teams can even function.
A shift from reactive to proactive.
Totally. And then there's visibility. This is crucial. CIM gives you this single, unified, real-time view of who has access to what across all your clouds. Trying to do that manually, it's like trying to draw a map of a constantly changing city by hand. CIM is more like having a live satellite feed. It shows you everything, even the hidden paths that could be security holes.
I like that analogy.
And for compliance, it makes meeting those complex regulatory requirements so much easier. Built-in reporting, automated monitoring, it can cut audit prep time down dramatically. Plus, yes, there are definite cost savings, less manual labor, sure, but the real saving is potentially avoiding the massive cost of a data breach.
Which can be astronomical.
Absolutely. And it's flexible too. You can tailor security approaches for specific needs within different cloud environments. You get really fine-grained control, looking at configuration scores, how much accounts are actually being used. And one point that really jumped out from the sources, it's surprisingly low effort to get continuous discovery running. Once you're past the initial setup, the tools often guide you. It's not as daunting as it might sound.
That low effort continuous discovery.
Yeah, that sounds incredibly appealing. It suggests CIM isn't just about being more efficient. It's about hitting a baseline of security hygiene that was maybe Just impossible to sustain manually, especially at scale.
That's a great way to put it. It really does set a new baseline, a new standard for what's actually achievable day to day in security posture management.
Okay, so we understand the what's and the why. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty. Let's put these two methods, automated CIM and manual management, head-to-head on some core security functions. Where do the differences really become sharpest in daily practice?
Yeah, this is where you really see the contrast. Let's take identity discovery. With automated CIM, the tools go out and automatically find all the identities, all the entitlements across all your linked environments pretty much instantly.
All of them.
All of them that the tool can see, yeah. Whereas manual management, that requires someone, or likely a team, to manually track everything, create inventories, which, let's be honest, in a dynamic cloud environment is never truly complete or fully up to date. Things change too fast. Right. It's outdated almost as soon as you finish compiling it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Policy enforcement. Automated CIM enforces those least privilege policies automatically, consistently, across the board. Saves huge amounts of time, reduces errors dramatically.
And ensures consistency.
Right. Manual methods. You're manually configuring policies for each account, maybe each resource. It's tedious, and it's a prime spot for human error or inconsistencies to creep in.
Okay, what about detecting risks?
Big difference here, too. Risk detection. CIM gives you real-time alerts. Hey, this account has excessive permissions, or this configuration violates policy. Right now.
Immediate feedback.
Yes. Manual relies on, well, periodic audits, manual checks, which means you're finding out about a potential problem maybe weeks or months after it first appeared. It's inherently reactive.
You're finding the vulnerability after it's been exposed for who knows how long.
Precisely. Then there's scalability. This is a huge one for cloud. Automated CIM scales pretty seamlessly as you add more cloud services, more users, more complexity. It's built for that.
Makes sense.
Manual management, it just breaks down. It becomes exponentially more complex, needs way more resources, and frankly, becomes almost impossible to manage securely as your cloud footprint grows significantly.
So it actively hinders growth or forces you to accept more risk?
You're both. Then audit and reporting. CIM tools can automatically generate detailed, comprehensive reports needed for compliance audits.
That alone must save so much pain.
Oh, huge amounts. Manually, you're pulling data from all over, compiling spreadsheets. It takes ages and drains resources.
And finally, incident response.
Incident response. With CIM, because you have that visibility and automation, you can often have rapid, even automated remediation of security risks. Detected excess permission, remove it, automatically.
Cutting down that response time drastically.
Hugely. Manual response is almost always delayed. You need someone to investigate, figure out what happened, decide what to do, then manually fix it, all while the clock is ticking and you're potentially exposed.
Okay, so summing that up, if manual is reactive, relies on people for every step, always lagging behind, is it fair to say that organizations sticking purely to manual methods are basically just accepting a higher, maybe even unquantifiable level of risk in their clouds?
I think the sources strongly suggest that, yes. The sheer speed and scale of modern cloud just outpaces manual capability. That unquantifiable risk you mentioned, that's a really key idea. It's the risk from the things you don't see, the permissions you don't know about, the changes you missed. Manual methods almost guarantee blind spots.
Which naturally leads to the next question. Beyond these direct functional comparisons, what other, maybe more practical factors should people be thinking about when they weigh these two approaches?
That's a good point. There are other considerations. For instance, the learning curve. Automated CIM, well, it does require learning new tools, understanding how automation works, how integrations are set up. It's a new skill set, potentially.
So an upfront investment in training or hiring?
Potentially, yes. But then you look at manual. The learning curve might be lower initially, but it carries this constant high administrative burden because of the complexity. It's an ongoing operational cost and effort.
Right. One is an initial investment, the other is a perpetual drain.
Kind of, yeah. Then there's the risk of errors. With automation, once it's set up correctly, the risk of operational error is pretty minimal. It does what it's told, consistently. But, and this is important, it does depend on getting that initial configuration right. Garbage in, garbage out still applies.
Sure, the setup is crucial.
Crucial. Manual management, though. The risk of human error is inherently high.
Yeah.
We're talking repetitive tasks, complex configurations. People make mistakes. It's unavoidable, especially under pressure or with large volumes.
And those mistakes can be very costly in security.
Extremely. Lastly, let's consider adaptability. How flexible are these approaches? Automated CIM is really limited only by what the specific tool can do and how quickly it gets updated. But the market is competitive, so good tools evolve fast. Manual management can, in theory, adapt to very unique, perhaps niche, security scenarios that maybe a tool doesn't cover out of the box.
So it offers ultimate customization.
In a way, yes, and it's a big demandatia, but it's usually incredibly time-consuming and inefficient to build those custom manual processes.
Gotcha. So while manual can be tailored for unique edge cases, it comes at a steep price in terms of time, effort, and potentially that higher risk of error we just talked about.
Exactly. We're trading off that bespoke capability against scalability, speed, consistency, and probably overall security posture. That seems to be the core tension highlighted in the research.
The tension between maybe handcrafted but slow and potentially flawed versus industrialized, scalable, and consistently applied security. Is that a fair summary?
I think that captures it really well. The sources suggest that while that initial hurdle of learning and integrating CIM might seem significant, the long-term payoff in consistency, reduced errors, and better security is just profound.
Okay, this paints a very clear picture, so let's bring it home for the listener. What does this all mean for you? Based on everything we've discussed, when should an organization really lean into automated CIM? And are there still situations where manual management might be? Okay, at least for a while.
Right, let's get practical. For automated CIM, the sources are pretty unambiguous. It's the recommended path if you're managing multi-cloud environments, especially if they have complex identity structures, lots of users, lots of roles. It's also basically essential for organizations that need to meet strict compliance requirements. Think GDPR, ITO, ISO C2. The automation and reporting are lifesavers there.
Makes sense. Compliance is a huge driver.
Huge. And also, for teams that maybe have limited resources, limited headcount, dedicated purely to manual security checks, CIM automation frees those people up for higher value work.
So complexity, compliance, and resource constraints all point towards automation.
Strongly, yes. Now, when might manual management still be viable? Generally, it's considered more acceptable for smaller setups, simpler environments, fewer identities, fewer permissions to track.
Startups, maybe, or very small businesses.
Potentially, yes. Or organizations with truly unique, highly non-standard security needs that current CIM tools just don't easily handle. Though that's becoming rarer as tools get more sophisticated.
Edge cases, really.
Kind of. And then, realistically, there's budget. If an organization has severe budget constraints that prevent that upfront investment in CIM tools and potentially training, they might stick with manual, at least temporarily.
But with the understanding that it's a temporary solution with inherent risks.
That seems to be the implication, yes. It's often seen as a stopgap, not a long-term strategy for growth. So, if we synthesize the key takeaways, kind of boiled down by criteria, best for automated CIM is best for large, complex, multi-cloud setups. Manual might work for small, simple ones.
Okay.
Security posture. With automation, you generally get a high proactive security posture. With manual, it's reactive, variable, and really depends on how diligent your admins are day to day.
Right. Less predictable.
Much less. Scalability. Automated CIM is built to scale. Manual management fundamentally limits scalability in the cloud context.
It's a critical point.
Absolutely. And cost. Automated CIM usually means a higher initial cost, the tools, the setup. But the long-term savings from efficiency and, importantly, avoided breach costs can be substantial. Manual has a lower initial cost, maybe zero if you just use existing staff. But the operational costs, labor, fixing errors, incident response can rack up significantly over time. Not to mention the potential cost of a security failure.
The hidden costs of manual can outweigh the upfront cost of automation.
Often, yes. So the overall conclusion coming from our sources is pretty clear. While manual management might still have a place in very small, simple scenarios, or as a temporary measure, for any organization serious about long-term resilience, operational scale, and genuinely strong security in the cloud, transitioning to automated CIM isn't just recommended. It's becoming increasingly essential.
Wow, this deep dive really does highlight just how transformative, maybe even necessary, automation is becoming in cloud security. It's clearly not just about speed anymore. It's about achieving a level of security, consistency, and scale that manual efforts, frankly, just can't keep up with in these incredibly complex cloud environments we're all building. So here's a final thought to leave you with. As these cloud environments keep growing, seemingly exponentially, in both complexity and scope, What are the unseen, maybe accumulating risks that organizations are taking on right now by relying solely on yesterday's manual methods? And perhaps more urgently, how quickly can they truly pivot and adapt to this automated future if they haven't already started making that shift?